Yeah, so welcome back, everybody. And now we are having a very important topic, Research Scholars Symposium. Conference is, I think, incomplete without research scholars interacting and getting good feedback from the experts in the audience. Right. So just to set the context, these are not regular research papers. This is work in progress, and we appreciate the research scholars have been kind enough to come here and present that work in progress thing. So they will be publishing a paper in this area sometime in the future. So of course they won't be able to give very details because no, they may feel it is kind of little confidential, but they will give overall view of the project and the work they are doing. And I think your feedback will be very important, right? So let's make this session very interactive because it's the main purpose is to have that interaction, right? So with this brief introduction, let's start with our first speakers. I request the host to bring them on the board, please. It's Anusuya and Dr. Prakash. So the topic is cloud-assisted secure multi-party computation on blockchain. Okay. So yeah, so over to Anusuya Trisa Innocent. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Thanks for having me over here. So
yeah, so we have about 8 to maximum 10 minutes for presentation. Okay. And then followed by question answers. Okay. So try to complete within 8 minutes. Yeah.
Sure. So is my slide visible?
We see your screen. You can just go to your slide. You just make the slide focus. Yes.
Okay.
Now we can see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I am Anusuya Trace Innocent, and I am a research scholar with the School of Engineering, Amrita Vishwavidyapeetham, Bangalore campus, and I am doing my research under Dr. Prakash. And my research area is secure computation. Today, I will be presenting one of my future work from my thesis. Actually, I have submitted my synopsis. Okay. So we live in an age of information. See data everywhere, and there is a need to protect some sensitive data. That is, sensitive data means private data. There are several distributed applications. See, almost all our day-to-day applications, or we are doing it online now. And some application, they require the availability and confidentiality of the sensitive data. See, if we have to if you have to secure the data, normally we will go for cryptography. Encrypt the data and decrypt it at the receiver side. But what about the sensitive data? See, the private data, it has to be exposed at some level to be used with cryptography. So that availability of sensitive data is a concern. Okay. And there comes this the requirement for secure computation. See, what do you say the secure computation is? There are parties, two or more parties who doesn't trust each other or the channel they are going to use, or they don't want any third party. So how they are going to compute something? This is done by secure computation. And we have, as you say, like e-auctions can be there, and we can have like uh, procedures to avoid satellite collision. That DARPA is doing that project. They have successfully implemented that. And we have e-voting and our Aadhaar usage, day-to-day Aadhaar usage. So for all these things, without exposing our private data, how we are going to solve that? And again, for the distributed computing, our blockchain is going on in a very smooth manner, but there is a big concern, privacy. For that, private blockchain is introduced, but even then, for public usage, how we are going to use that? To answer these concerns, I have proposed this particular model. Okay. So secure computation, as I said, it helps to compute on private data, and it has mainly two components, the garbled circuit construction and oblivious transfer. See, any application can be represented in mathematical form, and whichever applications can be represented in mathematical form can be breakdown into circuit format. So normal circuit, here is just a sample circuit I have shown. So if you take this is an AND gate, right? So it will have like it's a 2 input and 1 output AND gate. Normally we will think we will be giving only bits, either 0 or 1 as inputs. Here what I say is, instead of that 0 or 1, there are two possible values for one particular wire. So take some tokens. Tokens means some strings. Here I am talking about bit strings. See, for example, if you are going to use AES 128 as the base encryption algorithm to be used in your application, then your string will be, this token will be of 128 bits. So you will choose 128 bit for your 0 input and another 128 bit for your 1 input. So like that, the complete circuit, it will be generated. Like for that, see, this is the 0 input, 1 input for the AND gate, and I have chosen another output for the 0 because 0 0 it gives 0 value and 1 1 it gives 1 value. And how it is being carried out is, we will take these corresponding values and do some encryption. This is the base method. Double encryption is used, and this encrypted value is actually permuted. A simple permutation is carried out. For example, if you see 1 1 1 output, that is the final output value, I have permuted and I have placed in this position. For example, for a 8-bit values, if I am taking, the garbled table will look like this. So this table is related with this particular AND gate. And instead of considering this all the gates as objects, to make that improve the efficiency in implementation, we can consider them as arrays in this particular format with a number of inputs, outputs, gates, and the first input wires, the second input wires, and the gate types represented in the 8421 format. Like you can give this particular value as a input for your protocols. Okay, and you could see here, generating for this one particular gate itself, I have to do a lot of work, and you can clearly tell that this is purely impractical. Okay, so but the beauty is you can process your private data without revealing it to anyone. So the optimizations on GC constructions have been carried out. It's been currently we are in the 4th decade. So it started with the point and permute. Instead of trying to evaluate all the values by the second party or the evaluator, if I am telling that my inputs is 1 1, for that I can just put a color bit or some form of during the time of garbled circuit construction itself, so that the evaluator, without checking all the 4 values, can directly go to the particular row and evaluate that. Then the free XOR technique. Wherever you find this XOR gate, instead of calling this complex encryption and other operations, you can directly do the XOR operation, because XOR itself is a minimal encryption algorithm, you can tell. And garbled row reduction. See, instead of sending 4 rows for a gate, you can remove this first row. Okay, or you can have it as a constant value or 0 values. So with the help of that, you can generate the other 3 values. So like randomness and security can also be improved, but only 3 row values or 3 ciphertext you will be sending for one particular gate. Okay, and pipeline garbling and evaluation. So this garbling and the evaluation process has to be carried out simultaneously. And then comes in the year 2013 by Bellare et al. Just Garble framework. This used three major optimizations: the dual key cipher, that is, instead of generating uh, two different keys with the help of this complex operation, you generate one key, and the second key, like, you do a small operation of over this and generate the second key. So with complex encryption call, two ciphertexts are generated, and this is one among the best in the practical implementation, I can tell. And using this AES new instructions embedded in the new systems, and this SED format, the circuit format I have shown earlier. So with this, I have come across with another one optimization, batch key cipher. Instead of calling this complex encryption calls per gate, for a batch of gate, you can call this complex encryption calls. And for the remaining batch, for example, for AES, it is 128-bit is the, I have chosen as the base encryption. So for this first gate, I will be calling this complex encryption call. For the remaining 127 gates, a small shifting and XOR, all those things can be applied, and that I could say I have got around 35% improvement. And recent works like EMP2, enhanced multi-party computation, they have used the work of half gates, and they were able to get only two ciphertexts per gate, and but their computation time is larger. And another one work of my work here, I haven't used this free XOR technique or anything, but these people, they depend upon the free XOR technique, and without that, I could able to get the better values. So once this secure computation is made more efficient, now how to apply it on real-time applications? Okay. Now, first one is how to combine both blockchain and secure computation. See, blockchain, like decentralized solution for a variety of application, ensuring only the honest parties are part of the system. And I can assure the secure computation, it provides privacy. Okay, so combining both, like you can have blockchain with privacy, especially the public networks I am talking about. So this is the small framework, like see, whatever application, that metadata that will be that particular function will be defined, and that will be like made into circuits. So this circuits will be applied on the excuse me, this particular framework. Okay, and over that Garble circuit will be constructed. Different circuits will be constructed, and that pre-processing is carried out. And after that, these parties comes into picture, where the original inputs are given on this Garble circuits already constructed, and they are evaluating, and whatever values that a hash of them can be stored in the blockchain. Okay, and over here, major drawback is we need a pre-processing stage, because this even though this secure computation work is improved, but that time it is like when it comes for larger circuits, like for example, even the simple AES encryption, two-party encryption, where one party will have the key, other party will have the input, it will take around some 20 microseconds. So but and it has 36,500 gates overall. So but when it goes for 1 lakh or bigger applications, the time will be a concern again. So here comes the use of cloud computation. So instead of
Anusuya, sorry to interrupt. Just can you go?
Yeah, this is the
faster?
last.
Okay,
the last
sure.
one. Yeah. Okay. So this complex Garble circuit construction and evaluation can be outsourced to the cloud servers, and the same method, like so all the complete process can be made it in online. And it is I have already shown that this base framework, that FastGable with universal gates, it is 67% better than the already existing systems and requires only 2 ciphertexts for the communication. And so as this complex operation is outsourced, the complete process can be made online. So this will improve the applicability for the day-to-day life applications of secure computation with blockchain with the help of cloud. Hence, the cloud-assisted FastGable Universal Gates Chain Framework. Thank you. Have any questions?
There are no questions as of now.
Yeah.
We'll move on to next paper.
Yeah, let's. I was just wondering if any quick. Sometimes people take a little bit extra time to ask. Okay, I think no questions. I think probably we can have questions after the session. You can come to the lounge and we can have some discussions. Okay, sure, thanks. So let's have the next talk. So now we have improving performance of data center workloads with decentralized scheduling. Meghna, Dinkar Sitaram, and Subramaniam K. Okay, Dr. K. Subramaniam. So is Meghna there? Yeah, Meghna is there already. Okay.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear you well. Yeah. So over to you.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Meghna. I'm a PhD student currently studying at PS University. My PhD supervisors are Professor K.V. Subramaniam and Dinkar Sitaram. I'll just share my screen. Okay. So the research topic that I've chosen to base my PhD on is the use of decentralized pair scheduling for scheduling heterogeneous data center workloads. As we know, data centers today host thousands of applications. Like we heard Dr. Govind Raju yesterday, he said Google has around 200,000 applications in its data center. And because of the variety of applications, the jobs also have different characteristics. For instance, they vary in terms of the resources they demand, the performance guarantees they request, and the kind of durations that they run for. So you can broadly classify jobs into short jobs and long jobs. Short jobs are mainly from user-facing applications, and since they involve user interaction, how the scheduling overhead for scheduling these jobs is very critical. It should be kept to a minimum. On the other hand, long jobs, they have larger resource requirements, and their performance requirement is actually throughput, and they're not very latency sensitive. And because of this, what centralized schedulers do, or schedulers these days do, is they ensure that long jobs are scheduled, keeping in mind load balancing and ensuring that cluster resources are utilized well. And because they can tolerate some amount of scheduling overhead, short jobs are given priority over long jobs. So why do we need to go the decentralized way? This is because mainly the currently existing centralized schedulers such as Mesos, Slurm, or Yarn, they're unable to meet the needs of today's workloads. So the reasons are fourfold. First is looking at the scale of today's workloads, these centralized schedulers are unable to meet the scheduling throughput or the number of scheduling decisions per second required for these workloads. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, short jobs are very latency sensitive. And when you have a centralized scheduler mapping thousands of tasks to thousands of nodes, this latency overhead becomes a little too much. The third problem that centralized schedulers face is head-of-line blocking, in which case long jobs occupy the front of the queue, making shorter jobs which have smaller resource requirements wait for a longer time. And the fourth reason is these days applications span multiple clusters. This could be for two reasons. One is for SLAs, that is ensuring high availability, launching tasks in different availability zones. And the second is to geographically distribute applications so that users have a better experience. An example is by the publication house Condé Nast. They have around 9 data centers globally across which their applications are spread. Now, coming to why fair share. So, fair sharing becomes relevant only when the demand for the resources exceeds the capacity of the resources. So, when this happens, the data center scheduler needs to ensure that tenant quotas are enforced and also that no particular class of job is treated unfairly. So, for instance, short jobs have to be given importance so that the scheduling overhead is kept to a minimum. At the same time, long jobs mustn't be starved. So one example of recent work which does both centralized scheduling and implements fairness policies is Hydra. Hydra is by Microsoft Research. So what Hydra does is it splits its cluster into multiple smaller subclusters, and each of the subclusters is governed by a modification of YARN. So the way it modified YARN is it has something called an AMRM proxy, which allows jobs to span multiple subclusters. Now, so another thing that Hydra does is it has separated the scheduling responsibility of share determination and task placement into two different components. This enables it to scale better and also achieve a higher throughput. So while Hydra is able to achieve a throughput of 40,000 scheduling decisions per second for a cluster of 50,000 nodes, it is, however, it reports a very high median allocation latency of 2 to 3 seconds. So when short jobs such as queries, interactive queries, span just hundreds of milliseconds, a 2 to 3 second latency is very high. This is possibly due to the coordination overhead of AMRM proxies trying to span jobs across clusters. Another example is Pigeon. This is also a decentralized design. However, Pigeon looks at fairness a little bit differently from Hydra. Hydra looks at scheduling policies in terms of tenant shares, whereas Pigeon looks at fairness between job classes, specifically short jobs and long jobs. So Pigeon also divides its cluster into smaller subclusters, each of which is governed by a master, and the master distributes the task of a job evenly across all of these subclusters. The way it ensures fairness is to make sure that the latency of short jobs is kept to a minimum. It reserves a pool of workers in each group just for short jobs. And the way it ensures that long jobs are not starved by just giving importance to short jobs is by using a weighted fair queuing scheme. So while Pigeon is scalable and it is fast, it has a few limitations. The first is it assumes that all task requests have homogeneous request demands, which is not realistic in today's looking at today's workloads, which are predominantly heterogeneous. So if you use the same model for today's workloads, it would lead to severe underutilization of resources and fragmentation. And another limitation, of course, is that Pigeon does not support fair share policies for enforcing tenant quotas. So the research questions that I aim to answer during my PhD is how can we ensure high scheduling throughput and low scheduling latency while at the same time not compromising on scheduling quality? By scheduling quality, I mean ensuring that job performance does not degrade, ensuring that task placement constraints are met, ensuring high utilization of cluster resources. The second question that I aim to answer is how do we implement robust global fairness policies without relying on a centralized state? So as we know, as systems scale, a centralized state becomes a bottleneck. So how do we do this without a centralized state? And another important point here is that we need to look at it globally. If you look at distributed schedulers today, like Sparrow, they ensure fairness at a worker level. So workers have queues which help enforce fairness, but it is important that it's enforced globally because this helps with task optimization in terms of task placement optimization. For example, if you have a simplistic scenario, if you have a cluster of just 2 nodes and one application has 50% quota, now it is forced to divide its or distribute its task to 50% on each node instead of consolidating it on one node. This will lead to additional overheads because of communication and network delay. So it restricts the flexibility in terms of task placement optimization, which is why it's important that we look at global fairness rather than at the level of a worker. So the progress I've made so far is I've completed my coursework, and we recently presented a paper at a workshop, JFFPP, held in conjunction with IPDPS. The work focused on the use of SCHED-Deadline to improve the resource isolation of latency-sensitive tasks when they are co-located with latency-tolerant tasks. And I'm currently working on the design of a decentralized architecture that addresses the limitations of existing approaches. So one of the challenges I foresee is the lack of infrastructure to run experiments with the prototype I come up with. So if you look at current literature, most experiments have clusters of sizes of 100 nodes to 2,000 nodes. So while we have infrastructure on campus, it may not be sufficient to run experiments at this scale. So that's all I had to say. I would be very grateful for feedback and suggestions. Thank you.
Yeah, any questions? Anybody would like to ask right away, or? Yeah, there is a question from Sridhar. Type of workloads will be considered for experiment?
So currently what I've been using are production workload traces from Google, Facebook, Yahoo, and Cloudera. So they're obfuscated to a large extent. So we don't know exactly what application the tasks are coming from, but they have resource utilization information and resource demand information, and also the runtime, how long they require resources.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that was the only question. I think there could be good feedback. So again, I would also request you to be available in the launch, and also request all the experts as well as volunteers to be available for a few minutes, to interact with research scholars afterwards. So thank you, Meghana. Yeah, that is interesting work. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, she just now left. Okay, fine. So we'll have this question later. There was a question on comments on workflows, but yeah, you can contact Sridhar later. Okay, yeah. So with this, we'll move on to the next and the last third research paper, that is by Amog and Dr. Rajat Vasudevamurthy. It is on 8-bit posit adder and subtractor. Okay. So I request host to bring Amog on the stage.
Yeah. Mr. Amog, could you give mic and speaker permissions and join the stage? Hello, Mr. Amog. You get a notification to join the stage. Please accept, and you can also give mic and speaker permission.
Yeah, so over to you, Amog. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Amog seems to have lost connection. Okay, it's coming up.
Hello.
Yes, Amog, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, sir.
You can also turn on your video if you prefer to, and share your PPT.
Okay, sir.
Your network connection is also poor. In case you have any other connection, you can switch over, or you can just continue.
I was also wondering if it is going to take time. Can we have it after the keynote address? Then we can get more time also. Host? No,
Not yet.
not yet. Not yet.
So I think Dr. Sanjay, that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, Amok,
Is it
what we'll
visible,
do
sir, my
is
slide?
because no, the slide is not visible. What Amok, what we'll do is we'll have the keynote now, and after the keynote we'll have your
Okay.
presentation. Then we may not have this time also.
Ah,
Okay, fine. So we'll all be there. So be in the same
okay, sir.
session.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll invite you after the keynote
Okay,
is
sir.
done. Okay, fine. So yeah,
Okay,
so
okay,
we'll be
sir.
back, Amok. Yeah, thanks. So host,
Thank you.
I will request you to start the next session, and then we'll come back to Amok. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Yeah. So over to Rambabu, sir. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. So Shashi, could you please add?
Yeah. We'll end this research scholar symposium session and move on to tutorial session.
Sure.